Good afternoon. This is Tennie McCarty. I am the founder and one of the owners. I own Shades of Hope Treatment Center along with my daughter, Christy. We own Shades of Hope here in Buffalo Gap, Texas. I've been in the addiction field. Shades is 33 years old, but I've been in the addiction field and codependency field for over 40 years. And so I have been talking about codependency the last couple of days. And codependency is about the brain chemistry, and it is usually people who are raised in different types of family systems will have codependency. And so what I want to talk about is how codependency can show up in the workplace. If you want to know about the families, I've done another video on families that it's a longer one, but it's more about children and how the impact of family systems. But I want to talk now about codependency in the workplace and what can happen to break down a system. And a system is, it can be any business, it can be a small business or a large corporation, or it can be a government. Codependency is like, when it's left unaddressed and untreated, it's like acid that will eat up the inside of the container that holds it. Codependency will eat up the inside of a person from the inside out when it's not addressed. And so codependency traits, one of the worst things that are pretty bad things that can happen in the workplace is gossip. It can destroy individuals, and it can be harmful to business. And gossip is when people in the system start talking about each other or the owners or their boss, and it can become slander. And so used to, when I worked over the center all the time and supervised people, and if I had someone to come to me and want to complain about another employee, I would say, well, wait just a minute, let's go get them. And I'd call them in my office and I'd say, now, tell them what you want to tell me. I wouldn't listen to the tattling unless the other person was there. Because what happens is it becomes like triangulation. You know, when someone wants to come and tell me something about another employee, what the person is like the victim. And they want me to rescue them and want me to persecute the other person, you know. And so that's triangulation has got to be broken in family systems and in the workplace. And so one of the ways to stop gossip is to head it off, from the beginning. And you know, one of the things that, of course, we are a treatment center, but one of the things that we teach our clients and staff is how to do confrontations. And a confrontation is when you confront someone about their behavior. And it's not about the person, it's about their behavior. And in previous videos on codependency, I have talked about the two most important things to have on board to recover from codependency is some healthy self-esteem and how to set healthy boundaries. So when you can do that, you can hear people if they do a confrontation, you know. So like I said, we teach the clients and our staff when something is bothering them to go confront the person, to ask for some time and confront the person. And how you do that is very simple. It's when you report the behavior. It's like, for instance, when you gossip about me, and name the person. What I think about that is that you're spreading false statements about me, and how I feel is pain and anger. And what I would need or like for you to do is to stop the gossiping and go and talk to the person that you gossip to and clean your act up. And what I intend to do, if I hear that you are continuing to gossip, I will terminate you. And it can be real simple. It could be something simple. It could be something like, you know, when you keep getting the pens off of my desk, what I think, and it can be kind of a hubris thing, I think you'd rather use my pens than yours. And what I think about that is I'm a little angry that you're using my pens. And what I would need or like for you to do is stop taking the pens off my desk or ask for them and then bring them back. And what I intend to do is just love you anyway and buy more pens for you to use. And that, it can be that simple. Confrontations can when someone's behavior bothers you. Okay, work addiction is a big part of codependency. When you have a work addict on your staff, it just looks so good because they're long suffering, they'll work long hours, and I'll tell you, they don't do it for free and for fun. Most of the time they'll build up grudges, and what will happen is they will get tired, they will stop, their work will not be as good, and if they're overworking. And so one of the things that we do at our facility is we don't like for people to work over 35 or 40 hours a week, because beyond that, they get too tired. They need to have a life outside of their job. And in our nation today, one of the things with the pandemic is it's slowed people down. There's a lot of work addicts that I believe that's going to come out of this that maybe will change the way that they work. I hope that happens because there has to be more to life than work. So work addiction is one way, or underworking, is a form of codependency, is not pulling your load and getting angry that you are asked to do certain things. That's codependency. Another thing is where you take on too much work even when you're not asked, but you expect to be rewarded for it, and you don't get that. And you're let down, and your boss doesn't even know it because it's something that you've taken on. That's all about codependency, getting your good feelings outside yourself. And then one of the things, it's kind of goes along with that, is like putting a lot of extreme energy into a project to solve problems, and then without getting or receiving the recognition. I'll give you an example of that. I was helped set up a drug and alcohol treatment center in town. And while we were there, they had a new director to come in. It was my place to get him familiar with the program. And then he asked me, he said, well, what do you think we need to do to improve, the facility in every way? So I made him a list, and I listed them in the number of the importance that I thought that we need to do it. And so it was in a sheet like this on a legal pad, and I handed it to him, and I was going to go over it with him one day and explain it to him. And he looked at it, and he just took it and threw it back at me. And he said, I won't live long enough to do all of that. That's just unreasonable that you think that we could even do that. I put a lot of work and energy and thought into doing that assignment. And I'm not exaggerating, I'm not making this up. The next month, when we had the board of directors meeting and he presented his report, it was typed up, but it was word for word what I had given him. Now that is codependency in the workplace, where somebody takes, the credit for someone else's work, and you criticize me for doing it. And that is codependency in kind of the reverse thing. And then codependents have a need to control because they feel like they can't control what's going on the inside, or can't control their own life, so they try to control other people. They can control other people. They do that so they can feel better on the inside. And then codependency is about not only will a lot of codependents take on too much work that is not theirs to take on, and they have stress-related illnesses. One of the things that we see a lot of your obese people will either work all the time or don't work at all. And what they will do is it breaks their health down, not just obese, but people will overwork, take on too many jobs, and they love how do you get all of this done? And, people put them on a pedestal, and then what will happen is they fall off the pedestal. They break down in stress-related illnesses, get very sick, from the inside out, and they can't keep up doing that kind of schedule. And then what that type of person will do, how codependency comes in, is that they expect other people to keep up the same schedule that they do, and they will try to manipulate people to do things that's maybe not even in their job description to do, and then we'll try to make them feel guilty. And if there is a cluster of untreated codependence in that particular workplace, this happens in churches more probably than anywhere, because a lot of churches and people who work in churches, this is why some churches will not hire people to do their office work if they are members of the church. And I think that's very wise to keep that separated, because sometimes it can get to be very codependent, and the person that is overworking will say things like, well, this is God's work. Yeah, it is, but it's also they are hired to do a job. So it's a real fine line there, and it is about that manipulation to help to get other people to feel guilty because they're not working as hard as you are. And there are people that are healthy who go to work in an unhealthy situation. And the minute they get there, and when they realize how unhealthy the system is, many times they will either leave or they will help bring about some change. And if there's no changes, they'll move on down the road. Sickness seeks its own level, and health seeks its own level. Healthy people want to be around other healthy people, and sick people will draw sick people to them. So a sick system, codependent system, will draw other codependents to them. And then that's where there's a lot of burnout. The man who trained me in the field of alcoholism told me that he didn't believe in burnout. He said when people know what they do, know their job, and are educated and know and trained well to work in the addiction field, and I'm sure this applies in other fields, that they don't burn out, they give out. Burnout is when you really don't know for sure what you're doing, and you try to take on tasks that are not yours to take on, and you burn yourself out to a crisp. That is a lot about untreated codependency. And then codependents expect perfection out of themselves and others, because they know that you want things to be as perfect as they do, and it is like they want to keep their thumb over anyone that is working for them, or they do not make healthy supervisors because their expectations are so high, and they'll put expectations on employees that they can't be met, and then the employee feels like they have never accomplished their goals, and they don't stay around. If they're healthy, they will not stay around in a business very long that treats their employees like that. And to close, a very basic guideline for codependency is to ask yourself, what is my business and what is not my business? By and large, I'm talking to myself, there's very little in my life that is my business outside myself. This is where we recommend you draw a circle around yourself, or look like you're, an imaginary hula hoop. You get inside that circle and you can change that person all you want to. But what the people outside of that circle, you need to accept. And it's not your place to change them. It's not your place to tell them what's wrong with them. And if you're in a situation that is not working for you, you might, look at yourself first, and then you might go talk to your supervisor. Or if there is I can't even think of the name, human services, go talk to them. But codependency is about getting our good feelings about ourselves outside ourselves. It's not about having a job well done. It's good to feel good about the work you do. But when that is where you get your identity, that is a form of codependency. Or if you get your bad feelings about yourself, well, I'll never amount to anything, I can't do anything right, that's codependency. It is a complex problem, but there are solutions. And if you need help further, you might call the office or email our executive director, Cam, C-A-M, at shadesofhope.com, all lowercase letters. I'm doing some phone not interviews. I'm doing phone counseling if anyone might want to do some phone sessions with me. And then, like I said, I do a week, once a month, an intensive, and it's actually only lasts 4 days, but it is intense. We work many hours, but it's really about how to break those binds of the past, to look at the baggage that you've carried and how that baggage is not even yours, and what that baggage turns into is codependency, and how to break that cycle is called breaking free from codependency. So, hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I hope to talk with you again soon. Thank you for listening.